GYP.
Wow, what does that mean?
I'll be honest, I don't think anyone knows what it means anymore.
That means I have a lot of things I want to get off my chest.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another edition of GYP Sports. Today we're doing the second half of our NFL preview for the upcoming 2014-2015 season, and we'll be looking at the NFC. We have the AFC that's up already on the website. Check it out on our YouTube page. Check it up on our website. But for the second half of the NFC, once again, I have my brother Phil on the line. How you doing, Phil?
Doing pretty good, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Definitely excited to the NFC. A lot more caliber of team in the NFC than in the AFC for sure.
The quality of play in the NFC is significantly better than the AFC, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, and we're just gonna have so much to talk about that we should just jump right into it.
Let's do it.
We'll start off with the NFC East, as we started out with the AFC East last time. So I have all the win total over-unders here, according to footballlocks.com.
All right.
What team do you think is the highest in terms of projection?
We're talking about the East, you said, right?
The NFC East, yeah.
All right. I think it's pretty, easy to see. It's the Eagles to the East.
That's right, the Eagles. The Eagles are actually projected over-under for 9 wins. Now, they're a team that didn't really make too many additions in the offseason, but they definitely had that late season surge last year, the emergence of Nick Foles as the starting quarterback. Michael Vick has been pushed out. He's going to the Jets. They lose Deshaun Jackson. He was just straight up cut, and that did open up a little bit of salary, but he's at the division rival Redskins now, or we should really call him the Washington football team. Let's be a little bit more politically correct.
That team in D.C.
Yeah, that team in Washington, D.C. They had a few pieces here and there, but really not a lot of substantial additions. They're just really hoping to carry that momentum from last season into this season.
And they'll have Maclin back.
Right, Jeremy Maclin.
He missed, most of last year. So
he's no Deshaun Jackson. He's not.
No, he's not. But I think he fills that gap. Probably about 75-80% of production.
Yeah, and that might be all they need, because the division doesn't appear to be one of the most powerful divisions in the world.
No, especially on defense.
No, there's just no defense at all in this division.
Not a single good defense in that entire division.
I mean, so many people are so high on Philadelphia. They're like, oh, the emergence of Nick Foles, what can he do? Can this team make a run at it? But they have no defense. None.
Not at all. But they really don't need... Well, I mean, I guess, you need defense, but, they easily have the best offense in the division with the worst defenses.
Yeah, I mean, I like their linebackers. I like Connor Barwin, Michael Kendricks, D'Amico Ryans, but those are all, maybe B-plus guys at best. They're not that caliber talent, if I can get my words right. And they don't really have anyone of that caliber on the defense that is a standout. They don't have that playmaker out there.
No, I mean, they got, I guess their best player on defense is maybe Brandon Boykin is one of the more important guys.
If Brandon Boykin's the best player on your defense, you don't have the best player on your defense.
You don't have a great defense.
Yeah, I mean, right now it looks like their offense, obviously, their big-time player, LaShawn McCoy, possibly the best running back in the NFL, arguably.
Mm-hmm. Arguably right now,
Arguably, I mean, there's definitely the argument out there for Adrian Peterson, Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah,
we'll definitely
Jamal
get to them later.
Yeah.
But now you get Jeremy Maclin and Riley Cooper as your wide receivers, and then not much after that. You have Jordan Matthews, but not a lot of depth there.
Mm-hmm. Well, what was it? They who's their tight end there? Ertz.
Ertz
started coming along at the end of
great
last
name.
year.
If you have a name that ends with a Z and 3.
Yeah, any TZ is good.
Oh yeah, great. There was there was a guy Klutz there, but he didn't even end in a Z. I think he ended with an S. He deceived me.
I don't care. It's a Z in my book.
Okay. But how you feel about the Eagles? I mean, they look like the favorites by far in the East.
They do. I think that offense is gonna, as you like you said, they had a good surge at the end of last year, and I think a lot of that has to do with one Foles coming in and just them getting an overall better handle of that offense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that'll continue into this year. I don't think necessarily they'll be better than they were at the end of last year, but I think they can be as good as they were at the end of last year. And again, in that division, that's, an electric offense is going to win you games. And
Well, it's definitely going to score you points against all those defenses.
Yeah, and I don't see any other of those teams being able to keep up. And, it's almost just by process of elimination that Philly ends up on top of that division. I don't think they're going to be, a 12-win team by any chance. It means I don't think they're that good.
Mm-hmm.
But in that division, I think they'll get 10, 11 games.
Okay, so you definitely think they're well over. I mean, this at 9, that's a tough over-under with a team like Philadelphia, but hopefully they can scoop up some wins. They also have the best of times and the worst of times kind of schedule. They play the NFC West and the AFC South, so they definitely have some stiff competition. They definitely have some easier competition too. But I guess they're one of those teams that is going to sneak into the playoffs, but are they going to be able to do any damage once they get into there?
They'll get a home game for winning that division.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe, I wouldn't be surprised if they got a win just based on who they play, unless they play, the wild card out of the West.
Right.
So, but, if they played a team like, I don't know, Chicago or,
You're
Atlanta.
definitely showing your hand here. With
yeah,
other teams.
a little bit, a little bit. But if they played one of, if they could, wrap up the 3 seed so they could play the 6 seed, I'll just say that then.
Okay.
I'm just going to go ahead and guess the wild card out of the West will end up being the 5th.
Do you think Nick Foles is the real deal? And follow up to that question, do you think that the loss of a receiver like Deshaun Jackson is going to hinder his progression?
Well, I guess that all depends on what you mean by real deal.
I would say a top 10 quarterback consistently in the NFL going forward. He doesn't have to be elite. He doesn't have to be Drew Brees or Aaron Rodgers. Mm-hmm. But if he can be that next tier down, Roethlisberger and Rivers for as long as those guys have been doing it, I mean, I think that would be...
I think he's definitely an above-average quarterback, capable of being. But do I think he consistently be, I don't know, what you're saying is maybe that 5 to 10 range?
Yeah.
If you told me 8 to 12, I'd be fine with that.
Okay. I guess we'll see what he can do now that he's lost some weapons.
I think he can stay in there, yeah. I mean, but Deshaun Jackson, as much as great as he is, he's really one-dimensional, and that's a complicated offense.
Mm-hmm. Right, so, it is a Chip Kelly offense. We haven't even mentioned Chip Kelly yet.
Yeah, and you got to think his system, anything wrong with his system last year, he's probably made adjustments, just getting more used to that NFL level.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, we're kind of overlooking that, him as a coach as opposed to, just the team in general has definitely progressed as well.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a system thing or what, but it certainly seems like Foles is a very efficient quarterback. And if it's not a system thing, if that's just who Nick Foles is, I love it. If anyone's an efficient quarterback, that's leaps and bounds, for your team. I mean, if you're not Phillip Rivers or Eli Manning, who have had those years where they throw over 30 interceptions, that's progress,
Yeah, well, I mean, on the interception, he's going to throw more interceptions. He's not going to start out of the gate. I mean, how many TDs did he throw before he threw a pick last year? Or something outrageous.
Like 16 or 17.
That's not going to happen. By the time he has 16 touchdowns, he's probably going to have 6 or 7 picks this year.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so they definitely seem like the team that's favored. Now, this division is definitely really clumped together, though. The next 3 teams, in terms of over-under win totals, are almost exactly the same. The next team down is the New York Giants, who talk about a lot of turnover, talk about a lot of parts changing. Mm-hmm. This is a team that loses a lot of pieces. They gain a lot of pieces, too, but it's kind of a team that's really trying to rediscover its identity. A team that's looking to rebound after an offensive year that was just disastrous. Interceptions, fumbles, injuries. Moving to kind of a West Coast style offense. Short passes, trying to get Eli Manning's throwing percentage up there. Really trying to figure it out again. Is this team still that dangerous team that can sneak into the playoffs and do some damage?
I just don't. I can't stand the Giants because those years that they've snuck in,
there's no one that Patriots fans like in this division.
Yeah, no, I know, but you know what I mean. Those Super Bowls they had, that's exactly what they did. No one thought they were that great, and they snuck in and just won when it counted.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, I don't think this team is that great, but I just feel like you can't write off the fact that, maybe they could just pull out 3 wins in the last 3 weeks and sneak into the playoffs and make a run.
Mm-hmm.
They lose. What's their number for over/under?
Their number is 8. Right smack in the middle. It's painful to look at. Let me just go over some of their gains and losses. They replaced Andre Brown at running back with Rashad Jennings from Oakland, who's sneaky old. He's 29 years old, so he's not really a young guy. So he's definitely coming to was really like the end of a running back's career at that point.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They had some offensive line help. Charles Brown from New Orleans. They had Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie, who I was actually listening to something on ESPN the other day, and I loved how they described it. It's like Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie, he's not a big fan of football.
He's not. He doesn't actually like. He's like JD Drew to baseball. The Drews don't like playing.
They just look miserable all
They're
the time.
extremely talented, but they hate being out there.
They also add on the offensive line John Jerry from Miami. I can't say that anyone added from Miami is automatically an amazing asset.
Yeah, it probably doesn't really matter.
But they add Robert Ayers, a defensive end from Denver. They add Walter Thurman from Seattle, one of their nickel cornerbacks.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of little pieces here and there, and they lose a lot of little pieces too. I mean, I could go through all of them. Hakeem Nicks, one of the more glaring ones. So now wide receiver, it's definitely more of a youth movement. They lose Justin Tuck too. He goes to Oakland. So it's now a defensive line that's really anchored by Jason Pierre-Paul.
JPP.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly did really well early on, but he's got to stay healthy. He's got to stay on the field, and that was the Giants' biggest problem. They just seem to get injury at every single turn. Once again, not a real defense that strikes fear in the heart of its opponents. You look, it's just a bunch of sort of middling type players. Jameel McClain and John Beeson at linebacker. Antrell Roll and Quentin Demps are still safeties for them. It's just a lot of, once again, guys that make you go meh. At least they got Jason Pierre-Paul, who is potentially an elite player when he's on his game.
Yeah, I mean, he can be an all-pro if he's, again, healthy, and as long as anyone else on that line can produce, so he's not getting double-teamed all the time.
Mm-hmm. So wide receiver, it's become sort of a patchwork thing now, too. They have Victor Cruz, but after that, it's Ruben Randall, and they draft Odell Beckham Jr. They have Mario Manningham, but just, it's Victor Cruz and then everyone else.
Right. Well, I've heard good things about Odell Beckham.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can never just jump the gun and expect a rookie to be a significant producer. But, as far as like Knicks, I feel like hasn't even been healthy a ton lately. So if they can, get guys that stay on the field, I think they can fill that void that constantly hurt Knicks is going to leave behind.
Right. The one soft spot in my heart for this team is Victor Cruz, UMass alum. He was there while I was there. But this team really, they can win or lose on Eli Manning. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean,
he can't throw 30 interceptions.
It doesn't matter who else is on that team. If Eli is going to throw interceptions, they're going to lose. If he's not, then they're going to win. He's so wishy-washy with that. I've literally, as we've been talking about the Giants, I've flip-flopped on where I think they're going to end up in the standings 3 times.
But they're that team that's scary, that if they put things together, they can just sneak in and then all of a sudden get on a run. That's how they win. When was the last time the New York Giants had a dominant football team? Yet they've won 2 Super Bowls in the past, 7 years?
Yeah, and that's exactly why I'm afraid to say they're going to do poorly, because no matter how bad I think their team is, sometimes they just come out with wins.
So what do you think? You had the Philadelphia Eagles. You had them 11-5. I probably would have had them a little bit lower than that, maybe 10-6. But where do you put the New York Giants? Over or under that 8-win total?
Was it 8 or was it 8.5?
It's 8. It's 8 right on the dot. You gonna push?
I honestly, because I think they'll be better than last year. Because I think Eli will be better than he was last year.
Right. I mean, it's hard to not be better than last year.
It's really tough. And they went 7-9.
Mm-hmm.
So if I think they're going to be better, I gotta at least say they're going to be 8-8, right?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, you can just push there. You can take.
I think I'm going to push at 8-8 with.
Take the wimpy way out. I'll go over. I'll say they're 9-7. I just think they're a dangerous team that can put some things together. And they're just the team that sort of screwed us over a couple times.
right.
Patriots fans, that
There's a soft spot in my heart for hating the Giants.
And I got to think, you're going to pick up some wins against the AFC South. You're going to pick up some wins against your own division. You're going to have a favorable matchup. You're going to play, looks like they'll play Detroit and Atlanta this year. Those can be tricky games out of division, but we'll see how it works out for them. Now, the next two teams are both at 7.5. So, do you have any preference which one you want to go first with?
Not at all.
Not at all? Okay. I've been waiting to hear you trash the Cowboys. So, I know how much you teased a little bit, I think, in the last podcast where you said the Cowboys are going to be terrible. And, yeah, they absolutely have no defense. None.
Absolutely none.
None. Like, if they had the Eagles' defense, they would be thanking the Stars. And the Eagles are the, second worst defense in the division.
I think they'll be under.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, again, that defense is horrible. And, on offense, I don't trust Romo. I never trusted Romo, let alone coming off back surgery.
Mm-hmm. That's a huge question right there.
Yeah.
That's where it comes down to. Does Tony Romo return to form? I mean, he's been touting himself, like, usually a guy who doesn't talk much shit, basically. He has been saying, I'm going to be better than I've ever been. And, he's been really building himself up. That's... If he, I don't think he can be that good. I don't think he can be better than he ever was. But
no, I don't think so either.
And he's a quarterback that he'll win you games and he will lose you games.
Yeah, and I think Eli was doing his best last year to be like Romo, and just win games and then just single-handedly lose them.
Yeah,
but
defensively, they might not have much offense. They have one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. Great running offensive line. Their top running back, though, is DeMarco Murray, who I know we're not
healthy.
Yeah, we're not trying to assume injuries, but he's never stayed healthy.
Yeah, it's really tough. And behind him, they never really have they haven't gotten great production. Lately or the past few years after he's gotten hurt. So I don't know. Des Bryant is really the only reliable skill player on that team.
Well, maybe Mr. Reliable, Jason Witten. He's definitely getting up there in age, but
he's getting up there in age.
He's Tony Romo's binky.
They're best friends. But I don't trust anything about that team. So I'm definitely going under.
Okay, like
I don't know
how
much
under? Because I kind of thought that you were going to be like 3-13 for them. Which,
nah, not 3-30.
That would be the best thing that could happen to them right now. I think.
It would be, but I'd be shocked if they won less than 5 games.
Okay.
I think they'll be in that 5 to 7 range.
It's just a matter of how many games Tony Romo can win for them, because that's what it's going to come down to. I mean,
because he's going to have to win. Like, he won't be in charge of losing all of their losses, but he may be in charge of winning all of their wins.
Yeah, so they lose DeMarcus Ware, they lose Sean Lee, not to free agency or anything,
right?
Just
injury again.
Just an injury. Their defense is just there's no one. Their best player, maybe Brandon Carr, maybe Orlando Skendrick.
And he still underperformed last year.
Yeah,
I mean, they signed him to the big contract, and KC was so hurt without him.
They had a big body in the middle, Henry Melton from the Bears at defensive tackle, but that's not going to help your pass rush. That's certainly not going to be replacing Jason Hatcher. That's not going to be replacing DeMarcus Ware. And you need a pass rush. I'm completely a proponent of if you can have a great defensive line, the rest of the stuff can fall into place. And they lose 2 of their better pass rushers on this team.
Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of there. I think you can do much more if you have a talented secondary. Okay,
so you're sort of the opposite perspective.
Yeah, I kind of feel like once you got the secondary locked up, then you can do more with blitzing and packaging and random stuff like that to get pressure on the quarterback.
Well, after losing to the Giants twice in a Super Bowl, when basically they just rushed the hell out of Tom Brady, I've sort of become much more of an advocate of you build teams from the inside out on offense and defense.
Right.
So
you got to have quality players up there, but by your logic, the Texans are going to be great.
Yeah, well, you have to have a quarterback too.
Well, no, I mean defensively.
Oh yeah, well, Javian Clowney's been tearing it up.
He has been a monster. He has been lighting people up in the backfield, and I love it.
Yeah, it looks like completely as advertised. Hopefully, he can just stay healthy. I
Which,
don't know.
whenever you see a guy running around like that, you wonder if they can.
Mm-hmm. I've always had a kind of a soft spot in my heart for the Dallas Cowboys, and I do hope they have a terrible season. They're not a team that can make a deep run by any means, and they're a team that just needs to blow it up. Jason Garrett is the odds-on favorite, according to Vegas, as the first coach to get fired.
I was gonna say that a few minutes ago,
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't think he'd make it through the. I wanted to say I didn't think he'd make it through the year, but I kind of changed my mind and said I don't think he'll make it to next year.
Yeah.
But I think he's going. I think I'm surprised even he's lasted this long.
They're such an odd team. Bill Callahan's technically their offensive coordinator, but he's not going to be their play caller. It's not going to be Jason Garrett either. Is it someone else?
Then what's?
Yeah, it's one of those teams like the Raiders that the ownership just gets in the way. Mm-hmm. Maybe lesser now with the Raiders.
We're talking about you, Jerry.
Have you heard Frank Caliendo's new impression of Jerry Jones?
No, I didn't.
Oh yeah, you should check that out. I told you to check out that Mike and Mike thing where he did all those interviews, not just the LeBron James "I'm coming home" Morgan Freeman thing. He did so many. It was great. Robert Downey Jr.
He was like promoting his show or something, or like some special he was gonna have. Something like that.
Just download it. It's a podcast that you can listen to, just like this podcast. It's available on iTunes.
Whoop, whoop.
So is that like the official like whoop whoop for like internal promotion, like a little.
Yeah.
Whenever I say something like propping up the show.
That's my woot for anything.
Okay, so the last team in the division, the Washington Professional Football Team, over under of 7.5. Obviously, a terrible year last year. They have the biggest question is Robert Griffin III. Does he stay healthy? How do they improve going forward? He finally has a weapon to throw to. Pierre Garçon.
Pierre Garçon. Yeah.
I should not. Yeah, I apologize. I need to give him a little bit of his due.
Yeah.
But they had Deshaun Jackson as their major offensive addition. But they also add a few defensive players. They add Jason Hatcher from the Cowboys. They add Tracy Porter, cornerback who we remember from the Super Bowl a couple of years ago with the Saints. Not a world shaker by any means, but they add a little bit here and there. Brian Orakpo, hopefully he can stay healthy this year.
Yeah, another big question mark, but he's a monster.
If they're a team that, if they put it together like they did 2 years ago, and if Robert Griffin III can stay healthy and can play like a number 2 overall draft pick, they could win the division and they could make a lot of noise.
They could, yeah.
But they're still a team that at least they have a few defensive, like stellar players, and they have a few offensive stellar players. But they're a team that's got a lot of question marks, and they're a team that, even though they got these great wide receivers, they're a run-first team. And boy, do they have a bunch of running backs. Alfred Morris, Roy Halou. They have Royster. They have all these guys who can make a little bit of noise. And, maybe a mediocre offensive line. How do you feel about the Washington Professional Football Team?
I feel like, they're one of those teams, they'd probably be a lot of fun to play with on Madden.
Yeah.
Just because, that offense, like, they got, a fun guy at quarterback, fun guy at receiver, some running backs, yada, yada. Playmakers on defense, but not necessarily a good defense.
Do you know who their 2 safeties are?
Not at all.
Brandon Merriweather and Ryan Clark.
All right,
I think the NFL offices was just alerted to that.
Yeah, they have a special representative just to watch them whenever we play. I actually like Ryan Clark. Brandon Merriweather is, I think he's kind of a waste of talent. I thought
he's a fool.
Really
he's a
good.
fool.
Yeah, he's just a fool.
Yeah. The what he did last year, he hit someone so hard, leading his helmet, and he got flagged for it, but he knocked himself out.
Right. That's just reckless. That's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think the Redskins are a lot like the Lions. If I can just jump to like the North real quick, I think they're both kind of teams I don't trust, but would love to play with on Madden.
There's like 8 teams like that in the NFC.
I wouldn't be surprised, like, no matter how many wins they get. All right, there's a point I'd be surprised. But you know what I mean. I just don't trust them at all, and that's why I'm going to go under.
Okay, so you're going under. This will be the first one that we're like straight out. I mean, we disagreed a little bit on the Giants one. I think they're over. I think they're a 9-7 team.
Yeah, and again, you can easily you could talk me into that. I don't trust them.
Oh, I don't trust them either.
Last year
I don't trust that they'll be bad. So
last year they were 0-6 in that division.
And that's, I think, one of the biggest points to prove how much things can turn around. If you go 4-2 in the division, you still have the same, like, dreadful season that you had last year. Oh, all of a sudden you're 8-8, you know? And that's a dreadful season if you just manage to go 4-2 in this division, which is totally realistic.
Which is doable. I mean, you split games against
the Eagles and the Giants, and you sweep the Cowboys. Which I'm sure won't happen, but it's the division beats up on itself.
It's doable. And, again, RG3, second year back from the ACL injury, and that's what everyone... Unless you're Adrian Peterson, it usually takes you 2 years.
Yeah, but, whatever Adrian Peterson, he should, after he is done with football, he should be put out like a horse to stud. And just, like, spread those genes around, dude.
Spread it to the rest of the world. Like, players should be hiring him. Sleep with their wives so their kids can, go on and be great NFL players. Just imagine having, like, a team with, 12 Adrian Petersons. You go one at running back, one at receiver, linebacker, safety.
And running back is sort of the position that if you took a running back, you could almost put them at every other position, and they'd still kind of be competent.
Right. Physically, they can do just about any position.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're getting that's. I guess we're already really digging into the North. Like I said, Philadelphia, I think they win the division, but barely. 10-6, 9-7 for the Giants, 9-7 for the Redskins. I think the Cowboys are 5-11 this year. Just not good.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dallas and Washington will both be in that 5-7 range.
Okay, so you have two solid dwellers
I think
there.
the Giants right at 8-8, and then Philly I think can have 10 or 11 wins.
So it looks like it's all but certain that you only have one team going to the playoffs out of this division, which I think is completely reasonable.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if a second team out of the East was in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But we'll head over to the next division, the NFC North, and I do know you feel that a lot of people are really big on the NFC North, and I don't know that you have the exact same position on it. We were talking a little bit before the show started, and we'll just jump right into it, though. The best team in the NFC North. Any question about who that is?
No question.
No question.
With healthy Aaron Rodgers, it's the best team in the AFC North.
Right. The Green Bay Packers, their over/under is 10.5, which is one of the higher over/unders. I don't want to give any spoilers away. I almost said
right.
They're tied for second in terms of over/unders in the NFC, which is saying something.
Right, and I think that's deserved.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, I think was it last year or 2 years ago? I think one of the first, I think week 1 was like Niners Packers, and that was like
game of the year.
Oh yeah, it was just.
Game
We're
of
not.
the,
no, I mean
yeah.
like on the schedule. Like that was the game you wanted to see.
Oh, and that was
like,
the game was played great too. Probably the game of the year was the Patriots and the Broncos during the regular season.
Right. But I just think like those last year the Packers kind of fell out of it because Rodgers getting hurt. But I think they can be just as good as the Niners or the Seahawks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what it was. Rodgers got hurt last year. They don't lose or gain too much in terms of the offseason. They lose James Jones at wide receiver. They lose Evan Dietrich Smith at center. They lose another offensive line piece, Marshall Newhouse, that's not really going to break the team or anything. They add Julius Peppers, the aging Julius Peppers, but a great defensive end in terms of just putting pressure on the quarterback, which hopefully can reinforce their defense a little bit. I imagine he might play a little linebacker for them, though, because they do run the 3-4 scheme. We'll see how he does. He's a big, imposing guy. He could probably play on the line.
Yeah.
But they're another team that they have so many strong pieces that if they can just stay healthy, they have Clay Matthews, A.J. Hawk, they have Sam Shields, one of their cornerbacks. They have at the other corner Tremont Williams.
I like Tremont Williams.
They add HaHa Clinton Dix, which I thought was a great draft pick. Which I just love saying his name, HaHa Clinton Dix. but that'll be great for SportsCenter recaps or something.
Yeah,
whenever
they'll be all over it.
It's a defense that in a division where, once again, it's almost ring true as it was with the NFC East. This is a division with terrible defenses. This used to be the division that had dominant defenses, and now it's just a division that is just nothing in terms of defenses. And they're at least a defense that has a lot of playmakers on it. They don't seem like they will have any trouble, in my opinion. Do you disagree?
Oh, not at all. I mean, I think, again, that defense will be, better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they'll be great, but I think they'll be better. They didn't really lose anything on defense.
And in terms of offense, it seems just like it's always next man up. Eddie Lacy emerged as a pretty solid running back.
I love Eddie Lacy this year.
Yeah, I mean,
I think they could have one of the most complete offenses in the league.
Oh yeah, and while they lose James Jones, they lost Donald Driver last year. It's just next man up. Randall Cobb emerges as a top flight wide receiver. They still have Jordy Nelson. Jarrett Boykin is another wide receiver on the team. It's just keep bringing up the next guy. They don't have that great tight end anymore. They did a couple years ago.
Jermichael Finley.
Jermichael Finley really started to fall off, though. Andrew Corliss is their new
tight
end.
Well, Jermichael Finley also had a devastating neck injury.
Yeah, okay. So it's not his fault. It's not like, he tries hard
let's not place all the blame on him.
The offensive line, plenty of question marks on it, but they have some solid players in Sitton and Lang, Baluga at right tackle. But it's just about protecting Aaron Rodgers, and the best way to protect him is going to be to have a solid running game.
The running game, and it's something that they didn't have a few years ago. And last year, once Rodgers went down, Lacy really stepped up, and that team showed they can run the ball. And I think, with Rodgers there and a running threat, they're going to scare a lot of teams.
Right. It's just a matter of staying healthy. And if they stay healthy, I think they can be well over 10.5. I mean, they had a rough season last year. They made the playoffs, but really kind of backed into it, 8-7-1.
Yeah, but that was also one of the games of the year last year. Is that last game between Green Bay and Chicago, where Rodgers threw the Hail Mary essentially to I think it was Cobb.
I have the worst memory.
It was like with 30 seconds left, he threw like a 50-yard bomb on a drive, like after they just converted 2 fourth downs.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hell of a game.
Oh, no, yeah, it is ringing a bell. Yeah, I don't know. Worst memory ever right here. Swear to God. I have to write everything down. Like you like when I texted you earlier and I said, what time do you want to record this? And you're like, let's do it like 5 like last week. I was like, I don't even remember doing it at 5 last week. I just remember doing it last week.
I just woke up and it was done.
Yeah, it just happens.
I blacked out.
So who do you think is... Well, it's not a fair question because the next 2 teams in the division have the same over-under win total, Chicago and Detroit. We'll go to Chicago first. I think a lot of people are buying in on Chicago. They're a team that's really completely offensively driven now. Not a good defense at all. And their over-under is 8.5. Jay Cutler, still obviously the focal point of their team. Now they have plenty of weapons for him to throw to in terms of Brandon Marshall, in terms of the other kid's name is escaping me right now.
Alshon Jeffrey.
Is he still on the team?
Yeah.
Okay. I lost.
Everyone, they're saying that's
right.
The best receiving duo in football is Marshall and Jeffrey.
Right. Yeah, I just totally got mixed up there. But yeah, he is still on the team, of course. And they have Matt Forte, who maybe a couple of years ago regarded as one of the best all-around running backs, sort of a down year last year. But, the defense gets a lot weaker. They lose Henry Melton in the middle. We said he went to the Cowboys. But they gain a couple pass rushers, which could really make a difference. They gain Jared Allen from the Vikings, and they gain Lamar Houston from the Raiders.
Right. And, I mean, your worth, starts with the pass rush.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so, yeah, I'm definitely big on that pass rush.
Like, you got to think that the defense will probably, by that, I mean, Jared Allen is, getting up there in age, but he's still no joke.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think this defense will be better because all their major acquisitions seem to be on the defensive side of the ball.
Well, I guess that's the hope. Their defensive interior, I think, has a lot of weaknesses. They have Jason Ratliff. And they have Jeremiah Ratliff and Stephen Pea. Jason Ratliff probably be a little bit better, maybe 10 years ago. That's probably not. He was probably in high school then. But they had a terrible run defense last year. It's in a division where you're going to be facing the Packers, who are, like we said, if they can become a team that plays well in the run game, they can make all the difference. And they also have to play the Vikings twice a year, too.
Right. So, and that's, 60 running plays.
And keep in mind the division plays the AFC East this year, as well as the NFC South.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, you look at we know the Bills are going to be runners. The Jets are going to be runners.
Mm-hmm.
Patriots have been more runners the past few years.
It's still weird to watch. I still expect them to throw it on every play.
To throw all the time. But, yeah,
especially
I
with
like
McDaniels, but...
Yeah, I like watching the balanced offense, though.
They have a pretty decent pair of cornerbacks in terms of Tim Jennings and Peanut Tillman.
Mm-hmm.
But they're that team that's right in the middle, and you got to wonder exactly how they're going to finish this year. I think 8.5 is really appropriate. They finished with only 8 wins last year. Not every team can finish with more than 8 wins. It's going to come down to probably, are you going to have the Chicago team or the Detroit team getting over that hump this year?
I'm going to go with Chicago.
Okay, so you're big on the Bears.
Yeah, and again, when we get to Detroit, it'll just a lot of be the same of the Washington talk. So, But I like Chicago. I don't know. I just think Cutler is. I don't know why. I've never had faith in him, but like this year, I do for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
I think he could be a Pro Bowl caliber guy. But I don't know. Something about that team is it's sitting well with me.
Yeah, nothing ever sits well with me with Jay Cutler. I do not think he is anywhere close to being an elite quarterback, and I think a lot of it has to do with poor leadership. I've only heard the worst things in the world about Jay Cutler.
I know. He's a terrible leader.
He's a terrible person.
I'm sure he's just a person.
Yeah,
but,
just the worst.
But
just the
I
worst.
don't know. I just think he's going to put up some numbers.
Well, I'm going to go under with them. I don't think they move at all. I think they stay right around 8-8, maybe 7-9. But you think over? Do you think, what was it, 9-7 or 10-6 or?
Yeah, I think 9-7 sounds about right, and could squeak into the playoffs.
Okay, all right. So then we'll go to the other side of that coin. We already talked a little bit about the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions also at 8.5. Now they're a team. They have a new coach this year, but it's one of the more underwhelming hires. They replaced Jim Schwartz with Jim Caldwell, which kind of makes you just go meh.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, in terms of what they gain...
I'll move on with my day now.
Yeah, they add another... They add more offensive talent. Their offense, they don't address the defense as much, but they add up more offensive talent. They get Golden Tate, and then they also get, in the draft, they added, I believe it was Ebron? Is that who they added in the draft, the tight end? Yeah.
Yeah, the freak athlete tight end. I forget his name.
Yeah, so if
Everyone
any tight end's going to get drafted in the top 10 picks, I think he was 10th overall. Yeah, that's going to certainly...
Which, I mean, that's the new trend nowadays, having that athletic 6'7" tight end.
Mm-hmm. So now it's just pretty much, hey, Matthew Stafford, we're giving you all the weapons in the world.
Yep.
Do something. Now, how would you like to be Matthew Stafford? You can throw it to Calvin Johnson or Golden Tate or Brandon Pettigrew or Eric Ebron if they're on the field. Oh, by the way, you also got Reggie Bush in the backfield.
Right, and Jock Bell.
Jaquai Bell. Is it Jock Bell? Jaquai Bell? Whatever it is. You got him in the backfield. Got some pretty good slot wide receivers that they're developing. Ryan Broyles. They don't have Burleson anymore, but it's probably not the biggest loss in the world.
No, and but I mean, I will say real quick.
Mm-hmm.
If you made me choose, like, last year or even this year, like Burleson or Golden Tate. I'll take Tate, but not by much. I don't think he's that much of an upgrade over Burleson.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
No, I like Tate. I think Tate.
I think Tate is just meh. He's meh in my book. I don't know. I just never really maybe because he went to Notre Dame.
This is a team that's very top heavy in terms of its talent too. If they didn't have Calvin Johnson, even with all those weapons I listed, I don't think they win 5 games this year.
Oh no, but yeah, Calvin Johnson takes a lot of pressure off everyone else.
Yeah, they have a lot of issues on their defense. Their secondary, Rasheed Mathis, Glover Quinn, James Ahedebo, that is basically as scrap pile of a secondary as you can have. Stephen Tulloch in the middle of their defense at middle linebacker, pretty solid there. DeAndre Levy has his moments as well. But they're really all defensive line. And Ndamukong Suh, Nick Fairley, Jason Jones. Whenever I say Jason Jones, I think of the Daily Show correspondent. But, it's a defense.
So that's over my head. Sorry.
Oh, well, turn into the Daily Show.
I don't want to.
Their defense is built from the front up. I do like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that I have faith in Matthew Stafford to make that leap. I don't think they're a team that...
I just don't. I don't trust him. I love Stafford for fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
and for sometimes on my team, like you said, would you want Matt Stafford quarterbacking your team? I'd probably more often than not say yes, but at the same time, in the back of my head, I just know that as a team, the Lions aren't gonna blow people out. Like you always, they're that team right now that every year you expect them to kind of make that leap, and they just aren't making it.
Well, I don't know. With the money that he makes, I don't know if I'd want him. I'd take.
Well, money aside.
Right. But they're 8.5 for over under. You've already sort of indicated that you're thinking under for them. I'm also thinking under, but not by much again. 7-9, maybe 6-10.
Yeah, I think they'll be 7-9 would be my guess.
Yeah, I mean they lose Louis Delmas too. He's one of my favorite safeties in the NFL. He goes to the Dolphins, and like I said, that secondary is terrible, and they have to play the Bears and the Packers twice a year, and they're going to get torn apart. They're going to get torched.
That's at least 3 losses.
I think if you're a dome team, you have to have a defense that is strong, because you're going to get the great quarterbacks coming into your dome and just tearing you apart if you don't.
Right. I completely agree.
Now, the cellar dwellers in the division last year were the Minnesota Vikings. So the Minnesota Vikings, their over-under is the lowest in all of the NFC. Hopefully I'm not giving away too much there, but their over-under is 6. So definitely not projected to get that much better. In the draft, they sort of address their potential future issues. They don't really have much of a quarterback at this point. It's kind of a battle. Matt Castle and the newcomer, Teddy Bridgewater. I know you like Teddy Bridgewater.
I love Teddy Bridgewater.
Okay, so you love Teddy Bridgewater.
Love him.
They lose Jared Allen in defense, one of their big losses this year. They do get a little bit of help on the line. Corey Wooten from Chicago. They get Captain Munnerlyn, one of my favorite names
in football.
Yeah, one of the best names in football at cornerback. He sort of replaces Chris Cook. It's just another team that didn't really have anything spectacular in terms of additions in the offseason. Where do you stand on the? It's an Adrian Peterson run team. Where do you stand on the Vikings?
I mean, what did you say was their under was over under?
6.
5 and 6. I think
they
won. They
went 5-10-1 last year, which is as close to being under 6 as you could be.
Yeah, it can't be any closer.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they'll still be under, not necessarily because they got worse.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think they're actually probably better than they were last year, but I just think every other team in that division has gotten a little better. Or gotten, proportionally better than they did.
Now, I'm really low on this division as a whole. As you see, I already went under for the Bears and the Lions.
I don't know. I actually like most of the teams in this division. I don't know if it's really based on anything other than just gut feelings, but I do like this division.
I mean, the Vikings still have some pieces. Obviously, Adrian Peterson, great addition. They don't have the backup, the great white knight, Toby Gerhardt anymore.
Right, he's gone.
No, he's gone.
Rotting away in Jacksonville.
Yeah, but they got Matt Asiata, who had some decent moments last year. He's certainly not a stellar guy as their backup running back. Wide receivers, Greg Jennings, Cordell Patterson, seeing if he can maybe take the leap. Jerome Simpson, a.k.a. Captain Leaps a Lot. Yep. And they got some solid pieces on the offensive line. Josh Sullivan in the center.
What I will say...
Matt Khalil at left tackle.
For the Vikings is not this year, but I think they could potentially be in the wild card chase next year.
Okay, and I think that's just because you're so big on Teddy Bridgewater.
I'm big on Teddy Bridgewater, and I think it'll be, like, if he comes around, it'll be just in time. I think they'll have one good year left in Peterson at that time before he starts going down.
Mm-hmm.
And, if guys like Cordell Patterson can evolve and, develop, I think that's a team that could, be a 9-win team in 2 years.
Okay, but this
But
year,
next
definitely
year, no.
below.
Next year, 4 or 5, yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So far, we've been agreeing in a lot of these cases. Maybe just a little bit here and there, but I think the last 2 divisions we're going to have very different point of views. Especially on, I think there's like 4 teams out there that I think we have very different opinions on, but we'll see about that. So this division, I don't have anyone with a winning record besides the Packers, so obviously I don't think anyone else going to the playoffs out of this division. You think the Bears might be right on the cusp
Bears,
of that,
maybe. Maybe. We'll see. I guess probably if you had me write out records for each team, they wouldn't be, but I'm giving myself a game or so margin of error for everyone, and I think they could get it.
Well, we knew the NFC was going to be a little bit more compelling than the AFC. We're already past the 45-minute mark, so we're going to break this into 2 parts. So we'll get to part 2, the NFC South and the NFC West. Be a lot more of a compelling argument between me and Phil. Tune in for part 2 as we put it up tomorrow, right here at GYPsports.com. Remember, follow us on Twitter. Check out the Facebook page. Just search GYP Sports. We're now available on iTunes, and we're featured on YouTube as well. Just search GYP Sports to find all podcasts and posts associated with the website. GYP.